What's up, snobs? Shane here to give you my thoughts on Thunder Force, the new Netflix original movie. It was #1 on Netflix this weekend, but is it any good? Let's find out. No, it's not very good. But it has a surprisingly interesting concept. Basically, the setup for this film is that there is an event that's created a bunch of superpowered people, but it's only activated those powers in those with sociopathic tendencies. And so you have a world full of supervillains and no heroes. And so Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer's characters, want to change that. And so they end up engineering their own powers. So they have super strength and invisibility, and they form this superhero team to try to combat these villains. And I think that there's a nugget of an idea there. There's an interesting concept of exploring a world full of supervillains and no superheroes. And so I think from the beginning, the movie had the possibility of having a unique take on the genre and doing something different than what we've seen before. There's a lot of talented comedians in this movie. I thought Jason Bateman in particular stands out. I think he's always great in whatever he does, but I thought he was funny in this role. And, for the most part, the acting is what you would expect from a movie like this. While the premise is interesting and the cast is talented, the movie really falls apart when it comes to the script. It falls into every possible trope and story beat that we've seen in superhero origin stories for over 20 years at this point. I couldn't help but roll my eyes when they trotted out the same hero learning to use their new powers montage that we've seen dozens of times at this point. It had an interesting original idea that it never develops. It never takes advantage of the fact that it has this different setup than most superhero movies do. And so that part was really disappointing. On top of that, the script isn't great. The dialogue isn't very good. There's not a lot of jokes that land. There are some. I smiled or chuckled a handful of times. Like I said, most of that was involving Jason Bateman's character. But outside of those instances, the movie was disappointingly unfunny for a comedy. This movie felt like a lot of collaborations between Melissa McCarthy and her husband, Ben Falcone. If you've seen something like Life of the Party or Super Intelligence, it's on the same level of quality as those subpar comedies. I would actually watch a sequel if Netflix ends up making one. I think if they brought in a different writer and director to do something different with the story, I think the world is set up nicely. I think there's some interesting characters in here, and so there's room for this to go somewhere, and I'd like to see Netflix explore that. But unfortunately, Thunder Force wastes an interesting premise and a talented cast on a familiar story and a disappointing script. I give Thunder Force 2 stars out of 5. Thank you so much for checking out my review. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel for more reviews like this.